Callum, I've got a question for you.
What's the question you got for me, Connor?
What does Ramsay Bolton call Fat Walder's children?
Walder gravy.
No. Frey pigs in a blanket.
Ah,
Yeah.
fat jokes. Woohoo.
He's fat!
Pigs and blankets. Pigs and blankets are an elite food. That's like top tier.
I mean, it has elite flavour, but it always makes me feel sick after eating it.
Nah, give me like 20.
Because it's so rich. My stomach can't handle it.
Only ever have it at Christmas, and every time I have it, it's like the best food ever. I will gobble up like 20 of them.
I haven't vomited in about 6 years, and the reason why... One of the reasons why is because I take probiotics in the morning, which helps with my gut bacteria. And the other reason is because I avoid food like that.
I feel like I'm throwing up every 3 months.
Jesus. Well, I mean, the other
yeah.
reason is because I don't drink alcohol, and alcohol is a massive reason for people vomiting.
To be fair, I don't drink that much alcohol either, so...
Yeah, well, my ex used to vomit twice a week.
Maybe I'm just
anyway,
very
moving on.
person.
Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 3.
Speaking of making things vomit.
Oathbreaker. Oh, God, yeah. So, not yesterday... What am I talking about? Last episode. Last episode, the show killed off the Salt King and the fat
Bruce
woman
Bolton.
and her baby, and the Bruce Bolton. So Bolton daddy, Bolton stepmom, and Bolton stepbrother all died.
You know what's really funny? After we watched that, when my brother was over, I told him that we watched that episode, and I told him that I hated that so much, and he was like, yeah, but he's meant to be crazy. And I died inside.
So as Mary Mazdor says, only death can pay for life, and those 4 died, and the show vomited up Jon Snow.
Yeah, that final scene was so weird. It was so weird. They extended it for like 2 minutes extra longer than it probably should have been.
But you should be happy because your favorite character is back.
Well, my favourite character from the last 2 seasons, sure, but they've brought him back in a very strange way.
Well, actually, I'd probably say Cersei's
You know what's so
overtaken him
funny?
at this point.
One thing I thought about after we watched the episode was, I didn't even think about this beforehand, but the fact that fucking, what's his name? John's friend, who was in the room but left to get the...
Edison Tillett.
For some reason, how did he get out without getting caught when the whole place was like guarded?
He snuck around.
How?
He did a stealth side quest.
And again, and also why... I don't think we mentioned this in the previous 2 episodes, but why did they leave John's body out and then be like, hey, why have you got John's body in this room? Why not go burn the body yourself?
Yeah, they just stabbed him and walked away.
Yeah.
And then they went to the
rebellion has been very stupid.
They went to the they went to the bloody thing in the in the dining room, wherever it's called, the High Council. I can't remember what the word is for it. And they're just like, yeah, we did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he deserved it. He's a traitor.
Big old traitor, yeah.
He let those foreigners through the wall.
And Thorne just saying, oh, by the way, I did it. I did it. I admit to it.
Yeah.
Because that's not stupid.
Anyway, I think Cersei has very much overtaken Jon at this point.
Yep, pretty much, because she's the character at the moment that...
She's still pretty good.
It's just literally everything to do with King's Landing that's any way vaguely interesting. Yeah, it's not looking good for season 6. That's what I have to say.
Oh, but it's the best season of all time. Have you not heard that?
Yeah.
Well, Whippy, our favourite's back. Our boy is back. That means it's good, right? Because the good people are beating the bad people. That's what we want.
You know what I'm expecting from this episode? I'm expecting a hanging or whatever or a beheading, because that's what John did.
I watched Mania 40 with my friend Stefan, and like it got to a point where he just did so much John Cena dick riding. I just called him out on it. I was just like, why are you such a dick rider for Cena? And it reminds me of like the casual Game of Thrones fans with like Jon Snow. It's the same thing. It's just like, oh no, he was my boy from the start, and he came back, and that's what I wanted.
I mean, I've loved John for like 5 seasons.
Well, I love it when John gets a good story.
Yeah, maybe he'll come back and his character is still pretty good. But we're a season away from John slowly regressing into Dragon Queen simp.
Oh yes, let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
Imagine how heartbreaking it would be for you to watch this show not knowing what's at the end.
Yeah, I'd be so...
Imagine how excited you'd be.
Well, it's you had, what was the other episode? Oathkeeper, or was it called?
Yeah, from season 4.
Yeah, I believe from memory that episode was very good.
Yep. Yeah, it was decent.
Had that really good scene between
Rian and Jamie.
Yeah, because that's a really good scene.
Yep. It also has the first appearance of the Night King at the end when he touches the baby.
And, when he touched the baby.
And also the return of Carl fucking Tanner from Gin Alley.
Oh, I was a fucking legend. Yeah, he was great. Well, he was a great mini boss.
You look like a fucking ballsack, you do.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get a scene just as good as those. With characters just as good as those.
Oh, yeah.
I've got complete faith.
It's funny because Carl Tanner's not even a complex character. He's like really simple, but he's just effective.
Really simple, but very well played. I'm sure we'll get a scene just as good as that.
You know, in TV shows, you need stuff like that. And in season 4, for the most part, it was actually well done, and now it's not.
Yeah.
Shall we crack into Oathbreaker?
Yeah, let's crack into this.
So does that mean
of worms?
Does this mean that like the ratio of good to bad is going to be reversed from Oathkeeper? Like it's going to be as bad as Oathkeeper was good, and as good as Oathkeeper was bad?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if we can draw that comparison.
Yeah, unfortunately, I from memory, it's been a while since I've seen it because it was when we watched it on the channel. But I think Oathkeeper had some weird shit in Marine.
Well, I mean that's a given whenever Marine is involved.
Because that was the one where like the at the start, fucking what's it called, the Unsullied, they infiltrate it, and then Daenerys is just standing on top of that pyramid.
Marine is filled with such good scenes, even this season, when they would like, oh, I don't know who burned the boats. No one was on guard.
Tyrion's just
somehow.
Tyrion's just like, you have no balls.
That's always a great joke. Every time that's said. Every ball joke is so good.
I'm the only person in this room with balls.
I drink and I do things. Put that on a fucking t-shirt.
Yeah. So you're being mean to a eunuch, an Unsullied, and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but it's good because Tyrion is funny.
Tyrion's very funny. Always just bring out the bangers.
I drink
every time.
And I know things.
That is what I do.
The
one thing I do know is by season 7, it all sort of comes together. So once we're done with this season, we can be done with this bullshit of Marine. That I do know.
I mean, stuff from the East does come up, though, in the last 2 seasons. It's just
well,
not very well utilised.
The first... Boo. Oh, this is going to be a great episode. As you know, the first ever episode of Game of Thrones I actually ever watched was the first episode of season 7. Oh, that's okay. I would have probably started with him walking into the room and being shocked.
And all the girls went wild.
Yeah, he's very much in shape.
He's also been dead and starved.
Yeah, for a couple of days.
There was nothing at all.
The Lord let you come back for a reason. Stannis was not the prince who was promised.
Oh, they actually said his name.
Yeah, but they won't talk about it more than 5 seconds. One positive is that Kit Harington's acting has been very good this scene.
This is very biblical, isn't it?
Yeah.
He even looks like Jesus. With the beard.
What the fuck? How are you still fucking alive?
It's weird seeing Jon Snow with hair that short. It's been ages since like season 1.
It's probably like shorter than that.
No, and at the very start of season 1, it was shorter than this. Like the first episode.
Oh no, I think it was longer than that. I think it was much longer.
No, the scene with Tyrion at the dinner, it was shorter than this.
What kind of god would have a pecker that small?
Cock jokes.
Yeah, definitely a great time for it.
Not as egregious as Tyrion's though.
I feel like it's a bit more in character. Resurrection should change you. Yeah, so this is where Sam got laid in the books. It was at this point.
Yeah, he's over a bucket. He's totally fine.
Did I ever tell you are you going to be sick?
I think he's been sick.
Oh, I love watching that.
Surprised no one's used that gif more often.
There must be a blonde recessive gene somewhere in there.
We trust you.
Maybe Craster.
I'd feel better if you
Yeah. Oh, I can actually see.
Alright, now we get some interesting stuff. Oh, that music. Raymond Javadi, man.
That's my father.
The man beside him.
You can tell by the hair. So he kept the same hair for many, many, many years. These scenes are always filled with, that's this person. This is their title.
Wikipedia.
Oh, he's got 2 swords.
No.
Dual wield on.
Oh man, nice to... Oh, well, I was going to say, nice to see not too many cuts.
How is Sir Arthur Dayne going to fend off all these men?
Oh, well, we can't. It's 4 against 1.
But he's the greatest swordsman to ever live. He's the General Grievous of Game of Thrones.
Jesus Christ.
Oh!
Oh wow, he's even doing backhanded. He was also alive.
Father!
He actually heard that. Oh god. So it's not just dream states, it's actual time travel. I like how he says it's time to go. Yeah, you can do it at any point, but lets him say shit. Alright, Palpatine. What can I learn from you? Everything.
He's a lot more like Palpatine in the books because he's actually got complex intentions.
Yeah, but mysterious guide.
He's Dr. Google.
Well, that's confirmation that it's legitimate time travel.
The Dos Garin.
Somehow they've managed to make anything to do with Daenerys extremely, like, B-plot.
Yeah, I remember season 1 when her storyline and Robert Baratheon's were interconnected.
Intertwined. Everything that happened here mattered to what they were doing there.
I think Jorah Mormont was the link, and now that he's gone, it makes it less significant.
They've just kind of put her on pause for like 2 whole seasons.
Oh, great.
It's been 20 minutes and nothing's happened.
I don't know how you stand it in all that leather.
Except a fight in the past.
If we could have the room.
Is Varys such an idiot?
Because they forgot how to write for him. He is bald, mystical man.
And you've helped the sons of the Harpy murder the Unsullied and the Second Sons.
The Unsullied and the Second Sons are foreign soldiers, brought here by a foreign queen to destroy our city and our...
Oh, she was in last season, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, now I recognise her.
Yeah, she lured Barristan to his death. And
Yes.
Grey Worm almost.
Yes. Do not make a joke.
See, it was going so well. Why are we here? It was going so well.
Yeah.
What should we do while we're...
It's probably one of the smartest things Varys has done in like seasons.
What would you be talking about if I weren't here?
Sex.
Patrol. All right, no conversations. Let's play a game.
Oh, we love games.
Oh, you took your time.
That develops absolutely nothing.
It's such a waste.
Learning who found the
Wow. Qyburn's just robbed all his birds.
As bad as Lord Varys was, Qyburn is worse. I told them all. I told them. We never sanctioned this experiment. And I, for one, think it
Can you not hear them walking into the room?
have the beast destroyed.
He's a deaf old man.
Yeah, but he's not really though.
I do appreciate these things can get a bit confusing in your family.
It's a small council.
Gerald Hightower had a seat on the Mad King's council. Of course, that was the Mad King.
House the Dragon.
Saw things differently.
The gods worked through him whether he knew it or not. As they worked through your mother. There's so much good in all of us. The best we can do is to help each other bring it out.
Oh, good. Anyway,
Blind training.
this show is so volatile.
Who were you before you came?
It gets really tedious after a while.
Tell me about the Hound.
Also dead.
You don't fucking know that. Oh my gosh, he blocked it. The fucking music. Oh my god.
But they're faceless men. So it's like, what? They're not the same person.
I am desperate. I am so desperate. He's like this the whole season. I will fucking cry.
That water killed the man last season.
Yeah, it is. Oh, thank God. It lasted 3 episodes. That's a good line. Which enemies? Who are your enemies? Explain that to me. Who are your enemies?
Down. We always have to fight them first. I like fighting.
This guy's like the Drew McIntyre of Game of Thrones. He just sees the truth all the time.
For us to beat back alone.
I prayed for this and it happened.
Take them long to get here.
You think a horde of wild
The Welsh.
take Winterfell.
If they get Jon Snow leading them, maybe he knows his place better.
This guy really is Drew McIntyre.
A wild one.
Oh, God. Well, I imagine she'll survive.
Nice and young. The way cast out.
Oh. I'd say they survive 1 episode. They might even die right now. That'd be a lame way to end them after all this.
In the eyes of the world, Rickon is the rightful Lord of Winterfell, isn't he?
Yeah.
Rob's dead, Bran's missing. And we don't count women. Oh, shaggy dog. That's sad.
Dog. Yeah, I thought so. Though it's probably more than 4 people.
My mother's still living in White Harbour. Could you write her? Tell her I died fighting the wildlings.
I liked it in the books when those two had characters.
And you mean that now they're just nameless goons?
Time to hang a child.
Yep. That being the end of Thorn in the way they've done it in these 3 episodes is, yeah. They certainly made choices.
Oathbreaker. You know, that's one thing I'll say about season 6 is the music is at an all-time high. For Raymond Javadi's compositions. Your initial thoughts on Oathbreaker?
Episode with a whole lot of nothing other than the last scene.
Would it be fair to say this is probably the least bad one so far?
Yes. However, hardly anything fucking happened up until like the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was definitely very low-key.
Like, the last 2 scenes at Winterfell and the Wall at Castle Black. Nothing else really happened other than those scenes. Feels like this was a very much spinning the wheels episode.
I'd say it's pretty mediocre on the whole, and it's got a few highlights and a few lows.
Yes. I'd say this is an episode that doesn't piss me off as much as the previous 2 episodes did.
Yeah, kind of just mediocre as opposed to really bad, if that makes sense.
It just, again, nothing happened up until the last 5-10 minutes.
But the thing is, in earlier seasons, you get episodes that are like that, but the writing is so strong that it makes it worth it.
Yeah, but here's the thing, the writing has gotten very weak.
If you remember, so I'll give you an example. So season 2, episode 2 is a very not much happens episode, but all the scenes are really strong. Or at least almost all of them. You get a lot of great stuff in that episode that is just character speaking, like, you know, there's a lot of development with Craster's storyline and the Dragonstone stuff in that episode. And, you know, Tyrion sending Janos to the Wall. Like, it's an episode where not a lot happens, but the writing is so strong that it makes it good. Whereas an episode like this, the writing is really average for a lot of it, if not below average. And that makes it less worth it to have an episode like this, where it's kind of low-key, character-focused. Yeah, I think season 6 on the whole has been pretty low energy.
Oh boy, the energy is it's very low.
Shall we talk about some characters?
I guess we can.
Let's talk about Jon Snow, who bookended the episode. The Oathbreaker comes back to life, and then is now leaving the Wall, and is given the Night's Watch to Edison Tillett.
I don't imagine that's going to stick.
I guess the thought behind it is that he swore those oaths that he would be at Castle Black till he dies, and he died, and now he's back. So now he no longer has those oaths.
That's true.
But more importantly, it's the why. It's the why he wants to leave the Wall. That's the important part.
Which I hope we get explored in the next few episodes.
From what I remember, your biggest praise of the Snow stuff was Kit Harington's acting at the start.
I think his acting in this episode, for pretty much the 2 scenes he's in, was very good. Like really good. I think he sells the moment at the end as, great as he can be.
Yes, and I
As great
think
as he
actually, as much as The Wall and a lot of this show at the moment is oversimplifying itself from a moral perspective, and it's turning it into a good versus evil story, which is very antithesis of what the show's supposed to be about. That being said, we do get the fact that he hangs a child to death, which is an interesting facet of his character.
And yeah, it's gonna. You'd hope that that's gonna be a major thing that affects him.
That's the thing that really annoys me about it, is that so many of the casual Game of Thrones fans love that because they're like, oh, I fucking hate Ollie, he sucks, he deserved to die. But for me, it's like hanging, regardless of what they did, hanging a child is it's a heavy, complicated internal issue. And Kit Harington definitely sells that level of conflict in that scene where he can't even speak to him.
Well, Ollie doesn't say anything at all, and he's just kind of facing him and just sort of living with the fact that he's about to hang a child despite what he did. It's still, you know, a young boy who he has tried to take care of for 2 seasons now. And
you as an audience member can, vicariously through Ollie, you understand why he felt betrayed by Jon.
Yeah, you can see it. I think the actual visual storytelling they did in that scene was actually really good.
Yep. I also like Alistair Thorne's last little speech, the way he says, I fought, I lost, and now I rest. That was great.
I just wish the previous 3 episodes made him not fucking stupid.
Yes. The other thing I will say is that in the show, they've completely downsized Bowen Marsh and Othel Yarvik's characters, so they don't really mean anything when they die.
Just kind of 2 randos. I didn't even know they were characters for names.
Literally, first builder, Othel Yarvik, and then I think Bowen Marsh's first ranger, maybe? First steward, something like that. But regardless, what do we think? I mean, there's that scene where Davos does the whole, like, you failed once, go out and fail again. It's a little bit cliched, because you hear that a lot. Yeah.
I don't like that. I wasn't a fan of the line, to be honest.
No, it's a little too...
It felt too, like...
Hollywood.
I don't think that's something that Davos would say, like, go out and fail again.
I feel like he'd say something a bit funnier.
Or more profound instead of just go out and fail again.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, it doesn't really feel right for what he would say.
Remember the scene he had with Jon in season 5? In that room? That was actually a really good scene, the way he talks about Stannis believes in him. That was actually more in character, whereas this isn't. He sees something in you.
I imagine he could probably say something like, go out and show you're still Jon Snow.
I think the important part of it for him that I would think he would say is the why you're back doesn't matter. It's the fact that you are.
It's what you do.
You've been given a second chance. Who fucking cares how it happened or why it's happened? Just do it. Just do something about it. That's the part of Davos that I think should have been portrayed.
It's the line that John Cena says to The Rock. You know how many people who don't even get a first chance? I get a second chance. As shit as that feud is, that is profound here.
Yes. I feel like they've really undersold Melisandre's role in all this, the fact that it actually worked.
She was in one scene, and she said like 2 lines.
I feel like she should be having an internal monologue about, like, the Lord of Light actually did what I
She should have had a scene with Jon. Where was the scene with Jon before the ending scene?
Yeah. You know, imagine, like, because if you remember the scene they had last season where she tries to seduce him, you could have, like, a reverse angle of a she actually respects Jon now, she's not trying to use him.
Yeah.
Or she sees him as, you know, the true Azor Ahai that Stannis never was. Which Stannis got a 1 footnote line reference in this episode.
His only reference so far this season.
Also, we had Tormund make a cock joke when Jon came back. Because that's all Game of Thrones is now, it's just cock jokes.
It feels like, much like The Walking Dead, where there has to be 1 zombie kill per episode, this show now has to have 1 cock joke per episode. It's weird obligations.
Yeah, I don't know why Dave and Dan have such a weird fetish for cock jokes, but there you are.
Because I think that's what people keep saying about the show. It's all sex and cocks and shit.
People were saying that about season 1, but the sex scenes in season 1 actually have really good dialogue. Like when Littlefinger talks about how he's going to fuck the realm while two lesbians go at it. I think the Jon stuff this episode was mixed. It was good and bad.
Well, that's kind of the war at the moment. I feel
That's it.
like... I really hope that's not the highlight of the season for the war, because I'm not too looking forward to the rest of the season and where it's sort of going. There is seemingly going to be a war between Winterfell, Ramsay and Jon. I feel like that's what they're clearly setting up in these first 3 episodes. Now that we've got, Rickon back after what, like 2 seasons, 3 seasons, it feels like?
The last episode he appeared in was the one with the Red Wedding. So season 3, episode 9.
That's so long ago.
Yep.
It feels weird to bring him back now.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that scene, actually, because I believe, unless I am mistaken, it was small John Umber, who's the Drew McIntyre character. It makes sense because at the end, when Osher and Rickon deserted Bran, well, they left him, I should say, they said they were going to go to the Last Hearth, which is where the Umbers are. And I believe it's, even though he didn't appear in the season, I think it suggested that Great John Umber died in the Red Wedding, even though he wasn't on screen. Great John Umber, if you remember, was in the first season with Robb. He's the one that had his fingers bitten off by Grey Wind. His meat is bloody tough. And so small John Umber, I believe, is his son. And once he was aligned with Robb, and now he's aligned with Ramsay, but he's not going to bend the knee for Ramsay. Instead, he's just going to offer up Osher and Rickon.
He takes no shits.
So the logic behind how Osher and Rickon get given makes sense, because they stayed at the Last Hearth, which is where the Umbers are, and now the Umbers have changed sides. They've offered Ramsay them as a gift of good faith, I suppose. I do like the line of, your father was a cunt, and that's why you killed him. It's like he couldn't...
No, but he was poisoned by the enemies. His enemies.
Poisoned by our enemies. It still makes Ramsay look stupid. In fact, it probably makes him look even more stupid that Small John Umber could just easily guess that the true answer.
Stop gaslighting us into thinking, no, we know he's being stupid.
Yeah. How do we feel about his line saying that Harold Karstark likes little boys?
Yeah. This is what it is.
Yeah. So basically, both of their dads are dead, and they were dead because of Robb, and that's why they're with Ramsay. Robb beheaded Rickard Karstark, and then Great John Umber died at the Red Wedding because of Robb. So there you go. Also, Shaggy Dog is dead. Another direwolf gone.
Yep. They're just seemingly just killing all the dogs, just seemingly off screen. I don't know. It feels really weird whenever they do.
I mean, so we had Ned had to execute Lady.
Yes.
Nymeria obviously deserted, but we have no indication that she's dead. She's just ran away.
Gone. Yeah.
Then you've got Grey Wind, who was killed at the Red Wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And Shaggy Dog died here. So the only ones left, I believe, are Ghost and Summer that are with their owners.
Yeah. I remember when they were like really well used in like season 1 and 2 in terms of related to the Starks and
I mean that whole scene at the Red Wedding in season 3 with Grey Wind is just, it's so sad.
Dude, I'll never forget the fucking image of Robb's body with a spike for him with his dog. That's one of the most disturbing images from the whole show for me.
Yep, Grey Wind's head on Robb's body.
Than the hanging. Even more so than the hanging in this episode.
Yeah, what did you think of Ollie's silver face?
It looked really good.
You know, it's weird. It reminded me of the Sylvester McCoy title sequence because his face is silver in that.
Oh, someone replace that with that.
But you're right, Game of Thrones used to be so good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ramsay has Osha and Rickon. He has Lord Stark in a way, because Bran's missing and Rob's dead. And Jon's a bastard.
I said this during the episode, but yeah, he's not living for much longer. That's my prediction.
Well, if you think about it, he has Rickon. He can probably use that. If he assumes that Jon is alive, he can use that as bait.
Yeah. And we'll probably kill him in front of Jon or something. Because that's what the show is now.
Yeah, a lot of people are dying, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot of people are dying.
Poison by our enemies. Speaking of the Wall, let's talk about Samwell Tarly and Gilly. So the two things to talk... Yeah, the two things to talk about. Firstly, Sam is seasick.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that Gilly was excited to go to Old Town because it's the most beautiful city in Westeros. And then Sam said, "You can't go there because they don't allow women and children. So you're going to stay with my family in Horn Hill, and I'm going to go to Old Town to be a maester." And then she's like, "But what about wherever you go, I go?" And he's like, "I said that for you can be safe."
I hate those kind of bits of dialogue. And especially feels like a rehash of shit they've already said.
Yeah, they did a whole thing in season 4 about this, and then at the end of season 4 in the Watchers on the Wall, he was like, no, we're going to stick to that. Wherever you go, I go too. And now they're going back to it again.
They're regressing. It just feels like we're going in circles with them.
Yeah.
When I feel like it is understandable from some, just like, you can't go here, so we'll put you with my family. That makes the most sense.
Even though his dad hates wildlings.
Yeah. This scene felt like spinning wheels.
Yeah. It just brings it from point A to point B, I suppose.
Kinda.
I don't have much more to say.
No, there's nothing to say.
Alright, let's actually talk about a scene that was interesting. I have mixed thoughts on it. Let's talk about the scene where Ned Stark and Howland Reed fight and kill Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. So I have two things to say about this. I'll talk about the positive first, and then I'll get to the negative. Positive is the actual scene in the past itself is really cool, and the reason why it's cool is because in the first book, Ned Stark had these dreams at night where he was remembering this fight. So it's adapted from very good George Martin stuff. Some of the dialogue's a little bit too plasticky, but it as a narrative, the idea that Ned's trying to get to his sister, the Mad King's dead, Rhaegar's dead. The reason why Arthur Dayne wasn't on the Trident is because he was told to protect Lyanna. Obviously, Rhaegar, in the story, it's been established that Rhaegar, took and raped Lyanna. Sansa talked about that last season with Littlefinger. So Arthur Dayne is guarding Ned's sister. Ned needs to get past him. Knows that Arthur Dayne's the greatest swordsman, so the only way to win is to backstab him, which is why Howland Reed does that.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it is cool, right? And we get a cool kind of, I guess, sword fight. Arthur Dayne with the two swords, bit of action. The part of it that I don't care for is the Bran and Three-Eyed Raven aspect. That part of it is just so shit.
So dull.
And they just say these, info text lines. It's like, that's my father. Yes, and that's Mira's father. And that's Arthur Dayne, the greatest swordsman who ever lived. But he won this fight. He's talked about it 1,000 times. Father!
It's so shit.
And then at the end he's just like, what do I have left to learn? I don't want to be you.
Oh god. Just I'm so desperate for the show to make me care.
So as I said, that's my thoughts. The stuff in the past with Ned and Arthur Dayne and Howland Reed is good.
The fight is pretty decent.
Yeah, and the actual event itself is interesting. I think I can't remember where it's called again. It's I think it's Starfall maybe, or it's like the Tower of Joy at Starfall in Dawn. It's a really interesting event in history. Ned Stark beat Sir Arthur Dayne in a fight, and he told everyone that he did, but he didn't tell anyone the detail that Howland Reed had to stab him in the back for it to happen.
It's a way of, like, from their perspective, it's
the ends justify the means.
Yeah, and it's more like they need to believe that.
Well, it's consistent with Ned's core trait of he fights with honor, but when family is involved, he will sacrifice that honor.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to get to his sister. That is the number one priority. And it's the same thing as, like, you know, when he's on his knees and Joffrey's about to kill him and execute him or whatever, and he sacrifices his honor, lies, and says that Joffrey's the true king to protect his daughters. So the fact that he didn't...
The line of Bran saying, "I know he did, he told me the story 1,000 times," and not just because he's fucking alive when he... After this... It's so weird. Such a weird way of saying it.
It probably should have been more like, you know, I've been told that he beat him, but how did he beat him? How could my father possibly beat Arthur Dayne? He's too strong.
It's like, it shouldn't be like, because he told me.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, if we're talking about how the greatest swordsman who ever lived died, this is certainly much more interesting than Barristan getting shanked by a harpy. So yeah, the Ned stuff was good. The Bran stuff was bad. That's my take. Yeah. It also goes back to what that line in season 1. Remember when Ned said to Jaime, he's like, "I don't fight in tournaments because I don't want a man. When I get in a real fight, I don't want a man to know what I can do." Oh, I'll also say the other thing. There was a link in this episode. If you remember in the small council scene, I think Kevin Lannister mentioned about how Gerald Hightower and the Mad King were aligned. In that flashback scene, Gerald Hightower was with Arthur Dayne. He was on his side. So there is an actual link between those two scenes. And that you see Gerald Hightower in the vision and they reference him in the small council scene. That was quite cool. You'll learn more about the Hightowers when we watch House of the Dragon, because they're a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other aspect that links it together is the fact that Samwell Tarly is going to Old Town, and the Hightowers are one of the most powerful families in Old Town. Because she's not in the show, it's kind of like, it's not really a link, but Marjorie and Loris's mother was Ellery Hightower, and she married Mace Tyrell. But she's not in the show. She doesn't really have a character in the books, but they just decided to just not have her in it. But one of her ancestors, Alicent Hightower, is one of the main characters in House of the Dragon. So one of Marjorie and Loris's, ancestors from hundreds of years ago is in House of the Dragon. Alicent Hightower. I'm using bits of this episode to actually, interest you in the other show, not this one.
Yeah, not the one we're going to be watching still.
No. Let's talk about Daenerys and the Dothraki.
Do we have to?
Again, it's just A to B, isn't it? It's like she goes to the Dosh Khaleen. They explain that you'll be lucky if you're with us, but you deserted, so you might die.
This scene was a whole bunch of waffle.
Yep.
Nothing fucking happened.
And Daenerys is like, "I don't belong here because I'm this, and she's like, "Well, you still deserted your car."
Generally, might be one of the most nothing scenes she's been a part of. Like, nothing happened this scene.
Two women looked at each other menacingly and spoke.
That's literally nothing's happened with her in so long. She used to be a decent character. It's been so long since she's been decent.
Yeah, well, why would you adapt the books? That's just not a good idea, is it? Instead of having an introspective look into who she is as a person and thinking about her brothers and her father and her history, we have, "Where are my dragons?"
He talked about why didn't she stay with, after Drogo died, why didn't she stay and shit. I thought I was going to conquer with Savo. That didn't happen.
Then we had Tyrion Lannister playing games and making jokes and quoting himself in that moment.
God, why did that scene... Just cut that scene in half. You could have used that time.
Oh, but you don't understand. No, they all made a link because he said when Varys came in the room, he's like, "See, it's about conversation."
Like, comparing all the other scenes so far with Tyrion, it's on the not as bad scale, but still, it's a waste of time.
If anyone wants an actual good story about the theme of conversation, listen to Pink Floyd's The Division Bell, which is much better than this episode. That's what I'll say. Yeah, so the Tyrion stuff was shit. Now, with Varys, the jokes were cringe, like oh, I'm sweating when I walk up the stairs, I'm so fat. Like doing basically just Poe from Kung Fu Panda, but not good. But the actual, like, manipulative side was well done. He basically did what he did to Shay in Westeros, but he did it with someone who will actually want to leave, who, you know, threatened with it. It's like, and it was very in character. It's like, I'm not threatening your baby, I do not threaten children. And it's consistent, right? Because in the next scene, Qyburn steals his birds, but Varys has a lot of empathy for children, because he understands that they not only do they not have influence over the affairs of the society they live in, but also when Varys was a child, he was desexed, and he feels trauma from that. But the other aspect is, right, so your child, I will always make sure that he's okay, but how, like, you know, I won't execute him or hurt him, but how will he survive without his mother? You know, and it's targeting that side. I offer you something that you would actually want. Go to Pentos, live a new life with your child, get out of here. And all you have to do is just tell me the truth of what I need to know. It's a great bribe, and very manipulative, and it clearly works. I think that part of it in Meereen was good. Varys bribing that girl into information. But then you get to the part where they're like, oh, it's the Wise Masters of Astapor, Yunkai, and Volantis. It's like, okay, cool.
Okay.
It gave us one really good self-contained scene, and that's what I'll say about Meereen. Apart from that, it was Tyrion making jokes about alcohol, and
it's generally the best
like
Varys has been since season 4.
Yeah, since probably when he was in the trial. Anything else to add about Meereen?
There never is much to add about Meereen. This more so than any episode, because this, like I've said, this episode was just spinning the wheel.
I think I'll save the best for last, so right now let's talk about Braavos with Arya, the Waif, and Jaqen H'ghar.
Dude, the music in the end part of this section was fucking hilarious.
Very triumphant.
Yeah, she fucking conquered the fucking battle zone.
Yeah.
With her blindness.
Yeah. The part that really irks me is that the Waif is clearly getting irritated, but I'm like, these are faceless men and they interchange all the time. We've been showing that Jaqen H'ghar and the Waif swap all the time. So
the way she says, like, this silly little list or whatever.
Yeah, but it's because the truth is that she has to be playing a character of the Waif, and that's the reason why she's dedicating to this side. But it's like, they're making it really personal when that is completely antithetical to the whole point of the Faceless Men, is that it's not personal. And that really pisses me off.
She's meant to be, like, acting in the sense of not caring. But they're telling her to act in the way that she does.
The one thing I will say about this that I did like was when, I mean, obviously it's referencing a shitty scene, but it was when she asked about the Hound, of like, oh, so you didn't want to kill him? I did, and I didn't. Because she was, conflicted about it. And, it's funny, it actually reminded me of that bit from, Wild Blue Yonder, when the Doctor says, that's the funny thing about these people, is that they can think two completely different things at the same time.
A much better scene, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
an actual good episode of television.
It is actually reflective of her confessing how she felt about the Hound at the end, of like, it was a love-hate relationship. She saw him like a big brother, but she also hated him as well.
Yeah, because there's massive conflict.
Yep.
With that relationship.
Yep. That was the highlight of Braavos for me. Then she drank the water and her sight came back.
Thank God it didn't last the whole season. But I have a strong feeling she's going to stay here till near the end of the season, unfortunately.
Again, another scene from this episode that was just moving A to B. There's like 4 or 5 scenes in this episode that are just moving A to B.
Oh boy, are they, yeah.
It just kind of feels lazy. They did it with Daenerys, and they did it with Arya, and they did it with Sam as well. They did it with Ramsay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say.
Oh boy, yeah, that's pretty much it. In terms of that scene.
We've trenched through all that. Let's talk about King's Landing. So Qyburn has won over Varys's birds with sweet plums. So clearly he's gaining more power by having more influence. I thought that was quite well done. And Cersei obviously commands him to be like, I want you to, you know, have influence over birds and like a network over everywhere. Dawn, Highgarden, you know, the North. I want to know where they are, who they are. You know, anyone who laughed at me for having shit thrown at me in the streets.
Kind of like the person that was killed last episode.
Yep. Very vindictive and vengeful.
So I guess that's why that was set up, I guess.
There was also that joke that Jamie said about like, is the mountain dumb like he always was, or something like that. It was the small council scene where Cersei says, you know, we ought to be involved in this, and then they all just say, well, we'll just walk out.
Bye.
Bye. Pycelle was talking shit and got caught red-handed.
Yeah. Not hearing them coming to the room was like, okay.
Yeah. It is strange seeing Jamie and Cersei so together and not at odds with each other.
Yeah. It's definitely something different from all the other seasons. How long that lasts, though, we shall see.
Yeah. And also, the Queen of Thorns is back, which is great. Lena Tyrell. Mm-hmm. And I love the line where she said, she's like, oh, it's because the Queen was in prison, and Cersei's like, oh, thank you, sarcastically, like, thank you for thinking of me. And she's like, no, Marjorie's the Queen, not you.
I do appreciate you getting very confused on that. Yeah, it was a great line.
Yeah. And then we get a scene, I think one of the highlights of the episode, with the High Sparrow and King Tommen. This was actually quite good.
Yeah, very good conflict.
Tommen was he was attempting to go full Joffrey on the High Sparrow, but then he got manipulated again.
Yeah, exactly. I think the manipulation was actually very well done, because he's still very young and easy to manipulate.
Yeah, you talk further about that scene.
Just think the way the High Sparrow talks to, especially when Tywin is so young and impressionable, it makes, like, the way he says it makes you feel like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess that's an interesting way of looking at it, making him calm down from his initial intent when he entered the room. Talking about Cersei's love for Tommen. It's a really good scene.
Yeah, the way he says, you know, your mother's love for you is the purest love, and that's because it's not from this world, and you know that, because you felt it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's using truths against him to continue his sort of deception of Tommen. Yeah. The crown and the faith are the two pillars of power in this world. And the way he uses by removing the guards, you know, the sparrows and the Kingsguard from the room to ease the tension, and then does the whole thing of, I'm an old man, it's my knees, used as godliness to get Tommen back on his side, even though he made his mum walk through the streets and had shit thrown at her, and has his wife still in prison. I think it's safe to say that Tommen and Marjorie's honeymoon phase is over. Not that it ever really existed truly, at least for Marjorie. Very lukewarm episode on the whole, sadly.
Oh boy, was it.
So this episode was positively received. The thing that people mostly talked about was the Tower of Joy flashback scene. I can understand why. I mean, any appearance of Ned Stark in the story is always going to incite, like I remember him.
Yeah, we'll cite some.
Oathbreaker was more about putting pieces on the chessboard into place. I mean, they did do that, but written by David Benioff and Dan Weiss, obviously.
For a D&D episode, it was surprisingly, like, very low energy.
Again, some highs, some lows, mostly just in the middle. The direction by Daniel Sackheim. I think visually this episode did some good stuff. I think the hanging scene is probably my favorite in terms of its visuals. That whole moment of it building up to Jon cutting the rope. The way that they hide the people's faces until Jon looks at them. So it's very point of view based. Like, it's like us as the audience haven't faced the criminals until Jon sees them for himself. And obviously the scene with Tommen and the High Sparrow was also well directed as well, I would say. How do we feel about the cuts in both the Tower of Joy scene and the Bravos stuff?
I feel like it was less egregious this episode compared to other scenes, especially that Hound Brienne fight. Jesus Christ.
Or the one in Dawn.
Oh yeah, that was quite bad too.
Yeah, the Hound Brienne fight.
It allowed these scenes were allowed to sort of, I guess, breathe a bit more.
I think I saw like a YouTube video a while back that was like top 10 best Game of Thrones scenes, and one of them was the Hound Brienne fight, and I was just like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, these two badasses met and they fought and it was cool.
Not really much else to say on those scenes. In terms
the other shot I think
fights.
was well effective was the shot where it revealed Shaggy Dog's head was on a spike. Yeah, I've seen reactions of this episode, and there's always like that one person that goes, and they get very, like that. Music by Raymond Javadi. So I think there wasn't as much music this episode as usual. There was that bit in Bravos where it was very trying hard to convince you that she was excelling at her training. Apart from that, there was some great music. I think the music at the start of the Tara Joy scene, it slowly sort of developed this idea that this is not a normal thing that we recognize. And then it's revealed that it's in the past. You know what's a scene that does really good stuff with shots in the past and the future is Better Call Saul. Because whenever it's in the past, it's tinted dark blue, and when it's in the future, like in the near future, it's tinted dark orange, and when it's in the far future, it's black and white.
Yeah, season 1 is what I've seen, and it does that, yeah.
And it's great. I love that. That sort of consistency of you recognize these visual features so you know where it comes from.
Yeah.
The first track is called My Watch Has Ended. I mean, yeah, it's a fitting song, isn't it, for the scene?
Oh boy, is it.
John leaving the Night's Watch. Especially this sort of...
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's very suited. The violins very much highlight the sort of emotional despair from the actions.
Show theme, the character theme, the reluctance, the morose, the somber. It's all of it. Sort of this song represents how John is feeling in this episode. And I guess sort of on to go fail again is his idea. And also the feeling of I just hung a child. Raymond Javadi, as always, elevating this show. The other song is called The Tower. a new Ned Stark theme for season 6.
Big build up to that sort of grand crescendo.
It is obviously a rendition of the Stark theme, but in the context of the tower, you know, it's Ned is driven, hell-bent on getting to his sister. You know, he's fought this whole war at the Trident. He's not going to stop now. By any means necessary, he will make his way. It was always like the scene from... it's like when Voldemort says, "I'll be gone, and you will be dead." So I actually have a question for you. This was the first appearance of Howland Reed in the story. It's never suggested that he's not alive. What is his place in this story if he isn't dead?
Howland Reed.
Yeah. He's the father of Mira, Jojen. He was in that scene with Ned. He killed Arthur Dayne. The Three-Eyed Raven and Bran never talk about him not being alive. If he isn't dead, then what is his place in the story?
I'm not sure.
The title of this episode, Oathbreaker, may refer to Jon Snow leaving the Night's Watch, Small Jon Umber breaking his oath of loyalty to the Starks, or Daenerys having broken her oath to join the Dosh Khaleen after Drogo's death. And in the books, there were 3 Targaryen Kingsguard at the tower, but I guess in the show they wanted to make Arthur Dayne look like even more of a badass. Jon Snow, notably, has no memory loss after his resurrection, in contrast to Beric Dondarrion, who explained that being resurrected from death carried a heavy burden. Pieces of his mind were lost, and after being resurrected 6 times, he completely lost all memories of his life before his first resurrection. So, already, they're not showing enough consequence, are they? Yeah, so the interesting difference with Rickon and Osher and Shaggy Dog is that they left Bran much earlier in the books. They left at Winterfell and they went to White Harbor. But in the show, they stayed and then went to the Last Hearth. And then Davos goes to try find them for Stannis at White Harbor, and it's revealed they went to Skargos, which is an island. But here, they went to the Last Hearth, and then Small Jon Umber handed them over to Ramsay. After this episode, a lot of people were speculating that the Umbers handed them over as a ploy, or a play or something, against Ramsay. It's like, are they using that to bait him into something? I guess we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. So viewership, last episode got 7.29 million, this time got 7.28 million. So almost exactly the same.
Yeah, pretty much similar.
So Jon coming back did not increase the viewership. It only maintained
quite
it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's quite interesting actually. You'd think that would, for that week, it'd be pretty massive.
Yeah. You imagine so. Give your conclusion and rating out of 10 for Oathbreaker.
As I've said many times, this episode was very much spinning the wheels. Not much happened until the end, so there are a couple of okay bits, mainly King's Landing, but this episode I didn't have much going for it. But there wasn't the stuff that made me egregiously pissed off, so I'd probably give it I think this is very average, so I probably would give it a 5 out of 10. If not for the final scene, it probably would be about a 4. But I think because the final scene was actually really well done, I think it bumps it to a 5 for me. It's difficult with these kind of episodes.
Yeah, well, Oathbreaker is very mediocre. It has a few lows and a few highs, but it's crushingly mid overall. I think 5 out of 10 is fair.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe 4.5, but it's probably a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Because there was actually that Varys scene that was quite good. The stuff in King's Landing. But yeah, sludge. 5 out of 10. Next time, episode 4, it's called Book of the Stranger.
Ooh.
Thoughts, anticipations going into Book of the Stranger.
I imagine there'll be a follow-up with Jon in what his plan is now. If he's going to actually leave the wall. there has to be more shit going on next episode, surely. Other than just what we saw. Yeah, hopefully shit happening next episode be kind of the hope.
We didn't get anything with the Aranolans this episode, and we didn't get anything with Sansa or Theon.
I imagine next episode there'll be appearances from them.
This is very arduous.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe the reason why after, in season 7 they downsized the amount of episodes is because of this problem? They were just like, can't come up with shit to do for 10 episodes. They just fill it out with stuff. Maybe. It's very strange. It's very strange because if they actually did a proper adaptation, they would have like too many things to do and they wouldn't be able to fit it all in. But now they're at a point where they just don't have enough to do and they're just like, just put a bunch of stuff in it. Oh, but guys, it's season 6 is the best ever, right? It's the best season of all time. If every episode after this point was great, do you think it would still be a stupid argument?
Not sure. I hope that every episode from now is great, but
Well, let's say they're all 9s. I still think it would be below season 1.
Yeah. Because I don't think... Yeah, because pretty much every episode is above all these episodes by quite a distance.
Yeah, well, I mean, from when we originally did the reviews, all of seasons 1 and 2 were at least an 8 out of 10 every episode because it was so consistent. And even with season 2, how there was a couple of wobbles in some of the episodes, it was balanced out by other great stuff that uplifted it. Same thing with season 3 as well. It was still a very good standard. Jesus Christ. Anything else you want to say before we end this video?
This shit is spinning. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel.
We'll see you next time for Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 4, Book of the Stranger. I bid you adieu, good night, and a goodbye. Bang.